So when you find out you're working with Christine Baranski, I mean, she's done a few things here and there. I mean, was that
Right.
a little intimidating, or were you ready for the challenge? I mean, what was the first thing that popped in your mind?
I just felt inspired. I mean, Christine Baranski, Cynthia Nixon, Audra McDonald, Kelly O'Hara, Carrie Coon. I mean, it just sort of felt like, oh, I'm bringing my notebook to the first day of school and I'm going to learn at the feet of all of these masterful women.
I just got off a Zoom call with Julian actually, and he talked about how fortunate he was to get the ensemble that he got because of he had something like 7 Tony Award winners in the cast alone. Mentioned you, mentioned a few. I mean, the ensemble is what makes the show, but your character is very, very unique in my opinion. In that you don't take any nonsense from anybody, do you?
Um, no, I think that her goal is just to protect her own freedom, right? And I think that she comes from a long lineage of people who were doing that. And so I think really what's rare is that we don't get to see those characters on screen, but it's not rare that those people existed.
How did you prepare?
Um, I did a lot of research. I got to learn a lot about the Black people who existed at this time in the sort of Black elite of New York of the 1800s. I pulled a lot from my own experiences, and then it was a lot of collaborating with creative team over the course of pre-production to get Peggy as nuanced and authentic as she could possibly be.
In terms of Peggy, do you have a sense where her story could be going into the second season? Um, of course, you're not going to tell me anything. You don't want to ruin anything. But have they given you a heads up on where you're headed?
Yes, we've actually started filming season 2, so I know a little bit of inside scoop, but we get to really see Peggy develop more of her writing voice, develop more of her political voice, which is exciting. We get to see her explore some more of the Black world at that time, and obviously we get to get some final answered questions to this baby search and to how she's gonna navigate what we ended season 1 on.
Why do you think we don't hear enough about the African American community during this time period? Why do you think that is?
Well, I just think one of the most powerful tools of white supremacy is erasure, and we still live in a very hierarchical society that's based on race. And it's like we see it with the attack on critical race theory, also known as American history, happening in schools. There's a real fear of what happens when people know the truth about themselves and what kind of oppression will they stand for or not stand for. And so I think that shows like ours get to have a really incredible opportunity to be a part of honoring the truth. And I think that that ends up creating so much more freedom than you could ever realize.
And that's a big responsibility for someone like yourself because you're portraying a character who is a voice in a time period where maybe your voice may not have been listened to, so to speak. And you have that responsibility. Is that a lot of pressure on you as an actor, or are you ready to just rise to that moment?
I think it's a little bit of both. I am honored. I'm truly honored to get to breathe life into ancestors that have been erased in many ways, or the attempt at erasure. And I think it's also a very specific type of pressure that, for better or for worse, many Black people who are in predominantly white spaces carry that type of burden and opportunity to create access and to bring a spotlight to things that have been erased. And so I've taken this opportunity really seriously, and I felt very convicted in making sure we did as much as we possibly could and didn't miss a beat. And so it's a mix of honor. And I think the way it's been received in the feedback I've gotten from Black people watching the show has made every conversation, every email, every phone call so worth it. Because that was the goal. And I felt like in my insides, I knew, and Dr. Dunbar, like, we knew that that was the opportunity we had. And so it's really special, and it feels worth all of the pressure and the challenges.
I'm always curious the answer to this question when I've spoken to different actors and different shows, et cetera, and I'm going to ask you the same one. What was the toughest moment for you during filming of the first season?
We had just this really unique experience. We came back to filming before there was a vaccine, before, so much of those things. So we were really in corsets and masks in plastic tents for holding. It took a lot of like communal choice to just be as safe as possible and to watch the crew be in masks 24/7, where we got to take them off at least when we were filming. It was it just felt like we are all under very unique challenges that no one's really experienced before. And I think it did bring us together in a way.
Miss Julian mentioned the fact that even after filming, you guys were kind of, in a way, sequestered. That you guys were taken to your hotel, or you weren't encouraged to go out. I guess the best way to put it.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that made the experience lonely on some level, going through this, which probably makes it even harder.
Yeah, it was definitely, you didn't get to necessarily go out with the cast and have a drink and get to know everyone, but it also made it so we lived through something that not a lot of other people have lived through. And getting to have, like, my relationship with Louisa is beautiful, who plays Marion, and she and I think, like, we would just sit in our little plastic tents next to each other and talk, and and it's amazing how much can still happen on set. Like, I would pick Deborah Monk's brain about her career and her life, and we still were able to connect. And I think that's probably what COVID has taught all of us, is how, like, I don't know, how much ingenuity comes with humans when we need to find connection no matter what.
For sure. Was there a moment during the season, either maybe it was a scene that you were in, a scene that you witnessed being filmed, where you were like, damn, this show is special. I am so fortunate to be part of this special show?
Every scene I got to do with John Douglas Thompson and Audra McDonald in the house we filmed in Troy, which was actually built in the 1880s, and the set dressing, there were just all of these, like, historical photos of Black families of this time. And it was actual photos that they found, which were things that I hadn't seen a lot of. And every moment like that, where we got to play those scenes together, I was like, oh my God, this hasn't been on mainstream television before. Like, we are really getting to be a part of this narrative really loudly declaring itself as a part of the history of the United States. And that has felt invaluable and priceless.
History had its eyes on you. I hate to go backwards on a Hamilton reference, but I mean, you had all those photos right there. It was like their eyes were watching you right or wrong, so to speak, but I mean, don't you agree? You're righting or wrong.
Yeah,
You're doing it for them. You're doing it for all these people who their stories aren't being told yet. You're kicking the door down and you're like, hot, shut up. You need to know about this community. And I mean, they were there. I mean, did you feel the sort of a presence? I mean, they had to, you had to feel, I have to imagine if I was in your shoes, I would feel like something going on that I couldn't explain as I was telling the story.
I definitely felt that way. And John Douglas Thompson and I talks about that a lot. He talks a lot about honoring his ancestors through his work. And I felt that so similarly. And I'm so thankful that Julian picked up that book, Black Gotham, and got inspired and wanted to write a character like Peggy into the show. And then I'm so thankful that Dr. Dunbar was attached to the project, and that Sonia got brought on and Sally got brought on, and we were able to really not only have this character here, but what does it mean to see her whole world? And I think that collaboration has created something really magnificent that I think is even still showing itself to me. I live in Brooklyn, and most of the people that I get stopped on the street by are Black fans of the show, which is not something I ever expected. I think a lot of times we see period dramas and assume we're just not going to be included unless it's in an incredibly traumatic way, right? And so that to me has been so humbling and empowering, and it's like, oh, we're doing something that's bigger than us.
So you've been away doing this magical. I'm going to read that part. You've been away doing this show that's getting all this buzz, and many members of your cast are getting buzz as well. I have to know. This is where we'll wrap. Are you still getting hit up for Hamilton tickets?
Oh, that's funny. You know, I think post-pandemic, I finally got out of the can I get some house seats journey. I think that was like, it washed the slate clean, and now that is a new Eliza's access to carry.